Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Hey everybody, Tom Dutta like Butta. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. We're rocking and rolling. We're live streaming. That means we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and Rumble, which is a great feed that I'm on, and it's going well over there. I want to say thank you to all of you because the show is growing. We're booked out weekly in the studio right through till May, and I'm turning people away. And that's because you come and you're interested in the narratives and the stories. And we have phenomenal guests who come to us to teach us their knowledge, their wisdom through narrative style storytelling. And that's why I think you're going to be thrilled with Mr. Jim Estill, who's in the green room. I'll be bringing on just a minute. Also, as we get into the broadcast, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. That helps the analytics share the show as we grow the audience. We're now an international audience, and when this show is finished, you'll be able to go watch it right away. The replay will stay wherever you logged in. However, we will be producing it and releasing it as an international YouTube premiere. I call it the final cut. And across all podcast stations, you know, where you go listen to podcasts, we're on all the great ones. Truly, we're in about 19 countries now. Very excited to tell you that. Listen, I want to share something personal with you before we get into this other story. I had an experience lately. Any of you have children out there and you kind of wonder through your life if you've done a good job raising them. Something happened. We were asked to fly short notice to a wedding for my daughter. And that wedding was supposed to happen in 2026. You can imagine getting the call saying, Mom and Dad, you need to fly somewhere else to do this wedding, and you only have 3 days. And on the other side of it, my daughter had 3 days to organize a wedding. But what was going on is the groom, now her husband, one of his parents was dying from cancer. And my daughter, who's 27 years old, she's the interim executive director of a company that's in the environmental space. Very proud of her. I don't see her that much because she's far away. She was selfless. She said to her now husband, we need to do this wedding now so your mom can be part of it. And as we sat in the room, you can imagine the joy and festivity of a wedding, and there's smiling and there's toasting. But as you look over here, there's a beautiful lady who's perishing from cancer. How do you juggle those two emotions? I grew personally, and I want to just acknowledge that I'm so proud of my daughter and all of you out there. When you look back at how you raise your children, there's always these moments that'll remind you that you did the best you could, and they are great. So let's get into our guest now before I start tearing up on that one. Jim Estill is the CEO of Danby Appliances. He's not just a business leader, he's a humanitarian powerhouse. Now, Jim's been with us twice before. The first time was to share his full story. You can find that in the archives. The second was just after COVID or during, where his firm was doing something under his leadership to navigate through that to help the world. And I was on LinkedIn looking at my feed, and I saw something about the King Charles Award, the King Charles III Coronation Medal, and Jim had received it. And I went, I got to get this man back because he's doing incredible things in the world to receive medals like that. So on that note, let's bring Jim to the screen. Hey, Jim, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, Tom. And great story about your daughter.
Thank you, Jim. And speaking of daughters and kids, we were just talking offline about something to do with snow. Tell everybody where you are in this thing about snow that you have there that you're looking at.
So I'm in Guelph, Ontario, and I look out my window across the road. There's probably a 30 or 40 meter high snowbank, the snow didn't snow 30 meters. That's where the front end loader piled it. And I said to Tom, if I was a kid, I'd want to build a big snow fort in there, although it's now melting, so it's looking dirty. But a few days ago, it was nice white snow. And I always loved snow. So I grew up in Woodstock, Ontario, where there's a lot of snow. Yeah. But I also bought Arctic snowplow, where we make snowplows. So I have another reason why I love snow.
Okay, good. And Jim, I challenged Jim to go out and be a kid and make a snowman or something out there. So maybe we'll get a photograph of that in the future. Hey, Jim, I'm wondering if you'd love to go and play in Plato's Garden. Are you willing to go have some playtime in Plato's Garden?
Let's do it.
Okay. If you like that, everybody just check out this short clip. Okay. What would it be like to be in Plato's Garden? Well, everybody, if you're watching the video, check this out. There's something on the screen. Well, the video might have given you a clue. I'm doing a doctoral degree at Middlesex University in London. By the way, I was born in that part. I live in Canada. And, well, Jim, you have heard of Plato. I know that. And Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, founded the Platonic school of thought, and academy was from the word academia. It was apparently the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. What we're going to be doing today is very unique in that we're going to be having conversations in three areas. The first one is macro. What was going on in the global world around you and your public work, everything you do that shaped you. Two is mezzo. What was happening in your sector? And then three, this is my favorite. This is about you. What was happening in your personal life? And many of the guests go back right to childhood, or they talk about various things. The whole idea here, Jim, and I'll take this off the screen now, is we're looking at the influences of context. And when we find the thoughts in all those areas and weave them together, it's called the mesh, we can get a deeper understanding of who you are. So I'm going to throw out something here, and then we're just going to riff on it, get you to talk to us. And I'll say this is in the micro area, your personal journey and insights. So you've built a company from your car trunk, apparently, into a $2 billion enterprise. But beyond that business, you became known for your radical generosity. Those are my words because of what I've seen. Take us back to a moment, perhaps a failure, a punch in the gut, that forced you to rethink your purpose. What shifted in you?
Well, what shifted in me was I was successful. So I grew my business to a certain size and I sold it and I was retired. Yeah. And I retired too young. And that was because, you grow up, you said, oh, start a business, grow it to a big size, sell for a lot of money. That's what you do. And I wasn't fulfilled and didn't feel, I didn't even feel a purpose to go work because I didn't need to work. And then I figured out, well, there's many other people that need help. And so now I actually need to make more money. Why? To help more people. So now I come into work early and leave late because I need to make more money because I can do more good. And that's how it changed my purpose.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And there's a picture I saw. You sent me some pictures to produce the show, and Danby, where you're the CEO of Danby Appliances, and I think somewhere on the building or something I saw it says "Make more money, do good" or something like that. That thing you said.
Our tagline is "Do the right thing." So basically, you come in the front door, it says "Do the right thing."
Gotcha.
And that's even an easy way to run a business, because how do you treat the customer? Well, do the right thing. How do you treat suppliers? Do the right thing. How do you treat your coworkers? Do the right thing. It almost is your handbook on how to handle yourself, because you can't possibly have a handbook that has every eventuality.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you mentioned something about selling that business you built and sold. So really quickly, what kind of business was that?
Well, that was a computer business. I'm an engineer. I needed a computer, got a better deal if I bought two. So I bought two and sold one. And then someone else needed a printer. And next thing you know, so I was just buying and selling other people's products. It was a computer distributor, a silent middleman. So people probably don't know the name of the company. Yeah. Synix, it's what it's now called, Synix, or TD Synix, I guess it's merged. And, it was, I almost backed into it because I needed a better deal to buy my computer, because back then computers were expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's intriguing. And I know you talked about it before when you were with us about the, out of the trunk of your car. You came to, well, you were about nine months old. You told me something funny about what you say to immigrants. Just share that with the audience about your illiteracy.
Well, when I immigrated to Canada, I didn't speak any English and I was illiterate. And of course, now I've done a lot of work with refugees, and I tell them, like, how tough is it to learn English? I didn't speak any English when I came here, and I was illiterate. And of course, the real upside is I was 9 months old, so of course I was
okay, that's
but even worse than that, I was fully dependent on everyone else. I wouldn't have eaten.
that's right. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean we're sort of in Plato's garden here, everybody, and the micro piece, the personal journey and insights. One of the things I wanted to do is just share a book with you because I've been doing a lot of reading. So I'm going to try to get this on my other camera. Just let me change the view here. Just hold on. Let's try this one here. Maybe that one. Okay, I think that might be it. So I have a book here, and in the work I'm doing with my thesis, a lot of reading. Oh boy, a lot of reading, Jim. I can't wait till I'm finished. It's called Meetings with Remarkable Men, All and Everything, and it's by a G.I. Gurdjieff. Now, just very quickly, Gurdjieff, Meetings with Remarkable Men is an autobiographical account of his youth and early travels. It was published in the 60s. It says it's a compulsive read in the tradition of adventure narratives. But what this fella did is he actually was seeking something. He was not fulfilled. He was seeking something. And so he went and found remarkable, he calls them remarkable men, because back in those days, that was a thing. The very first remarkable person he writes about is his father. He says, my father was widely known during the final decades of the last century, et cetera, et cetera. So you can get the book, everybody. But let's talk about that. I know your parents aren't with you, but talk about your father and your mother. Who shaped you? How did what they were in your life impact you in terms of who you became today?
I think we're all shaped a lot by our birth family. I had great parents. They both deceased, but my father was, we actually immigrated to Canada to open up branch plant for a U.S. company. So because of tariffs, that's why I am in Canada, because back then, American companies wanted to avoid tariffs coming into Canada. At that time, there was a trade war, and so they'd opened a branch plant. But he was traditional. He worked for the same company for 40 years or whatever. Yeah. He, when I started my business, he said, "Oh, it's okay. You can start a business when you fail. You can always go get a job. And, you're an engineer. You can get a job when it fails." And my mother was a stay-at-home mom until I was mid-teens, and then she went back to school and became a United Church minister, and
wonderful,
which was leading edge at that time. A woman, generally, they didn't work, and they didn't become ministers either.
For sure. So, oh, that's interesting. I just riffing here because it's storytelling. My mother was stay at home as well, although she was educated from Fiji, where my parents were from. And I was baptized Catholic, and faith became part of my life. So not getting into that in too much detail, but when you mentioned the influence of your mom, was faith part of your life? How did that play a role, or does it today at all become part of your life?
I think it would be, but right now I'm not super religious.
Yeah.
But I like to think I'm a good person. So I think the ethics definitely impact it. And as you know, I've done a lot of work with refugees. When I was about 12 years old, Uganda kicked out all the Asians. And my family took 2 single men, which were in their early 20s, into our home for a year. Wow. And I realized, and at the time I didn't like it because I have 3 brothers. I had to move in with my other brothers because they got my bedroom, and it was, I was self-centered. 10-year-old, 12-year-old, whatever. And so they both went on to be very successful. One of them became the CFO at Rockwell International. The other one had a career as an accountant. And but I realized after the fact how brave my mother was, specifically because she's a stay-home mom at that time with 2 strangers, 25-year-old men living in our house. And clearly it worked out well, but my mom is to, over credit for doing that.
That's very, what a profound story. Boy, that could be an episode in itself. If she was alive today, and I'm sure you're proud of her, that would be a story to tell. Did you know your grandparents?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
The reason why I asked that is when my father passed in 2018, I didn't know him that well because he left home when I was a kid. But I remember at that coffee I had with him saying, "Tell me about grandfather." And I believe that when you learn the stories of your grandparents, that actually does help understand how your parents were shaped as well. And there may be clues in there, like your mom, and for them to take in two strange refugees, that's incredible. But I bet you looking back at their lifeline or their bloodlines, there must be some clues there about how their belief system was shaped.
Yeah, I mean, both of my sets of grandparents were low middle class. They were working class people. And I have found that working class communities tend to look after each other and tend to be very open communities. As a matter of fact, if I was ever needed a place to stay or a meal, I would knock on a very modest house's door. I wouldn't go in the gated estate where I'd get shooed off. The other part of this, my parents were both the product of Depression era. And so my grandparents, it totally echoed in there. They had a scarcity mentality. They didn't throw out an elastic band. I mean, they saved everything. They reused everything.
Interesting.
It was just Depression era.
That's very cool. I'm thinking about my wife's dad who passed years ago. My wife was born just out of Rome, Italy, and her father grew up in the Depression. He used to herd sheep on the mountainside, and he'd tell stories. You know, we're drinking the demijohn of red wine and having sausages, and he used to sit beside me and just talk at me. And I remember he said once, when there's a commercial about Christmas on TV, and he said, "What a bunch of BS," in his own gruff way. He said, "You know, we didn't have anything," and then they had like an orange, and you rolled that around. That was your toy. And I was thinking about that in my doctoral, about how masks and identity, how we're shaped by what we hear, and our personas are shaped by those influences. So everybody, a teaching moment from Jim there. Come back and listen to that, what he said. Let's go into Mezzo. This is how your work impacts society. You're a fascinating man. I'm telling you, you're egoless too. 80 families you've helped refugees. So here's just a question to riff on. You didn't just write checks. You personally helped resettle over 80 refugee families. Correct me if I'm wrong. What was the toughest part of that journey? And was there ever a moment when you doubted the mission? And if so, what pulled you forward to keep doing things like that?
Well, just for your information, it's well over 80 families now.
Where are we at now, roughly?
Well, last night I calculated 1,000 people. So,
wow.
But some of them we have done the complete resettlement on, like pick them up at the airport and arrange the arrival meal and find the apartment and get the doctor, get the dentist. And some of them we've just provided. We have a furniture bank, so we provide furniture to people that churches have sponsored. Yeah. So there's different degrees of helping. But the reason that became such a hands-on project as opposed to just writing a check is many of those systems did not exist. And when a government sponsors a refugee, they give them a check, but a check doesn't do it. And they can even give them a bus pass. The difference between giving someone a bus pass and riding the bus with them and showing them a map and writing down, take bus route 7 and then get onto the bus route 3 and whatnot. It's just a world of difference. So, we have checklists on, everything from, show them the grocery store to sign them up at the YMCA and, get the doctor, get the dentist, register the kids at school. It's a huge checklist. So I run it kind of like a business runs with checklists and scorecards.
Oh, that's amazing. I had to tap my ear for a minute. 1,000 people. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, talking about significant. I can imagine. Would it be fair to say that you've gotten to know some of those people and learned about their stories? Oh. I'm sure that's been life-changing.
It is. And some of those stories are just heart-wrenching. I mean, I was sitting in, having tea with someone. He got the phone call that his brother his house had been blown up and his brother was dead. I mean, you can't. Wow. And the other thing it does, it makes me grateful. Every day I wake up, I'm tremendously grateful. Any problem I have, first world problems. We don't have the problem that we're going to get bombed tonight. And I'm just so grateful, and gratitude is tied to happiness. And so the two are hand in hand.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. Boy, My heart's growing on that. If you follow Jim, by the way, Jim, I follow your feed on LinkedIn and things. You're always posting little clips about things like gratitude. And, we sometimes have this perception of a CEO being the guy who nobody really gets to know at the top of a company. Just going off my questioning here, what came to mind was, how do your employees know about, in Danby, people who know you as a boss, they know about all these things you do. How do you think that's changed and humanized you, the way people you work with look at you?
Well, there was actually two unintended consequences of my refugee work. One was, because it was kind of unique when I did it in 2015, I got a ton of press. That's one unintended consequence. But the other unintended consequence is I don't have to advertise to hire people. And so I'm almost embarrassed. I sometimes go to a business group and people say, how do you get people? And I say, gee, I kind of get a resume every day. Someone wants to work here. And
I love it.
And so that was an unintended consequence. The other thing I've managed to do unintentionally, again, is connect something that may not be altruistic with being altruistic. So people who work here, they make freezers and bar fridges and stuff. That's what they sell. It's tough to say, more bar fridges is helping the world, but if you use the profits from that, yes. And it's not like I'm selling tobacco or something that's bad for the world necessarily. Yeah. But I'm also not necessarily selling something that's intrinsically good. Now, of course, some things, like a lot of people are refrigerators, they're refrigerators. You kind of need a refrigerator, but microwave and stuff like that. But
yeah, that's amazing. I really believe that you're an example of what humanization looks like. A CEO who actually, they say that vulnerability is hard for some leaders. The structure, the conditions of relationship in a corporation, and I'm studying this right now in my thesis, that there has to be separation. You have to deal with people, sometimes tough issues. And sometimes just generally the culture in companies from the top is one that doesn't allow relationships to grow in certain ways. And yet along comes you. And one of the things I'm learning is if we're doing something outside of work that comes with us into work and shows the real human side of us, then people see us in a very different way. Employee engagement goes up. And I think what we've learned from you with the resume thing, people are wanting to work with your company, is because you want to work with a great leader. And so that's pretty amazing. Let me put something on screen here and tell us who this guy is. Add to the stage. I'm just going to put that there. Well, that's you, right? What are you holding there?
Is that the King Charles, or is that a different one? I don't remember.
Oh, that looks like, I think that's the King Charles one. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
But something about a medal. You have a.
Oh, that is the King Charles one, because I can see them. Yes, I can see the medal. Yes.
So I'm going to take that off the screen, but I know we set this up. But you have a frame picture to show us. Let's see if I can open up this frame here.
So this
I'm gonna full screen you there. So just hold. Yeah. Okay. Hold it up.
So this is what we did with it. We framed the actual certificate with the medal for the King Charles.
Well, congratulations, little virtual applause for Jim. Now, Jim's very humble, so I'm going to put myself back on the screen. And Jim, I'm going to add something for us to take a look at here when I get you back. And so this is, I'm going to ask you about this to put us back into the moment when you got this medal. But before that, again, I saw this on Jim's LinkedIn about, he was awarded this thing. So I kind of went, okay, well, what the heck is that? How do you get one? Jim, I know you know this, but if you don't mind, for the sake of others, the King Charles III's Coronation Medal, and this is on the screen. If you listen to the podcast, you won't see this, so I'll narrate it. The Coronation Medal commemorates the coronation of His Majesty King Charles III as a King of Canada. The medal is administered by the Chancery of Honours at Rideau Hall. To be eligible, candidates must meet the following, and I'll just go to the second point, or the first point: have made a significant contribution to Canada or a particular province, territory, region, made an outstanding achievement abroad, and be alive, obviously, on May 2023. Goes on to talk about the description of it, and then wearing it. I found this interesting, Jim, that they even give you instructions. The medals shall be worn in sequence prescribed in the Canadian orders, and in the following manner on the left breast, blah, blah, blah. So congratulations. But tell us about the moment. Describe it. Draw pictures of when you got that. Where were you, and how do you feel? How did you feel getting it, and why did you get it?
Well, I got an email telling me that I won it, which was great. And they had a ceremony. And believe it, I was traveling and I was not able to attend. So my wife accepted the award on my behalf.
Okay.
But it's not as impactful as it should have been. But the problem is we lead busy lives. And
of course,
as a matter of fact, when they sent the thing saying, the ceremony will be on such and such a date, my reply was, I'm sorry, you'll have to change the date.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's just riff for a minute on this. Okay, so your wife went and got it, so she must have come back, I'm assuming, and said something to you about what had occurred. Any thoughts you want to share about the impact it had on her, and then how did you feel when you first received it? What did that mean to you?
Well, my wife is a very private person, very shy person, does not want the publicity, and so it's going to the brink of her comfort zone.
What's her first name?
Elizabeth.
Okay, nice.
So she going to the brink of her comfort zone to go and receive that award. And I've been extremely lucky in life, and I have received a number of awards over the years. And so I think to some extent she's like, I'm just a normal person anyways, but for her, I'm an extra normal person, right? Like, gee, I didn't pick my socks up, like, whatever.
Well, you're very humble, but thank you for letting us share that honor. And again, congratulations. I mean, one of the things is that there's the ordinary person sees a man like you and sees awards like that, and then digs into your story and learns about what you're doing to be seen that way. And I think it teaches everybody something about giving back and serving. Tell me what you think of this, but I believe that, well, Tony Robbins said this too, and I follow him, that, we'll be remembered by what we do in private, not just in public. And you do a lot of things in public, but privately, you're a humble person, and you don't brag about your awards. And I just believe that people like you, awards come, they come because the impact you're making on the world warrants that attention. Does that make sense?
It does, actually. If you do what you do because you want awards, I will tell you won't be successful. That is also business advice. So many business people say, I'm going to start a business. I'm going to make millions of dollars. If that's your purpose in business, I guarantee you will fail. You need a higher purpose than that. So don't do it for the medals. Don't do it for the awards. Do it because it's the right thing to do. Do it because it's in your heart. The same is true even in communication. Like you read, you should be authentic. Well, you can't fake authentic. I'll get my speechwriter to write an authentic speech for me. I don't think so.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Now I'm thinking about macro here. That's the global, okay, the bigger picture. So I'll throw something out here. We're still in Plato's Garden, everybody. Leadership today is shifting. There's profit first to purpose driven. A lot of talk about purposeful business. Now we got AI, Jim, and being an engineer, I'm sure you have an opinion on AI. There's a global crisis, geopolitical pressures, shifting economies. And then, of course, we came through COVID, and that probably impacted Danby and things have maybe shifted in some ways. So what do you think the next era of leadership should look like? How can entrepreneurs balance, business with deep impact?
Can I have an easier question? Well, you're right. It is a balance, and we are entering a time of extremely high change, and change is uncertain for people. Yeah. But it goes back to just be yourself. I'm a big believer in servant leader. So that's really my mode, is how can I help my people succeed? Help your people succeed and you will succeed. And so it's listening to that. And as far as AI and new tools and stuff, you can't say they don't exist. We have to embrace them. We have to, not overuse them, not make it so it's crazy. I mean, I hate it when I call a bank with a real question and it says go online, and well, that's why I'm calling, because I can't go online or whatever. It's just like, no, don't tell me, don't make it AI.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. I'm just having this vision now. Danby, by the way, I bought one of your air conditioners. Thank you, because we extreme temperatures here years ago, and good product. So I highly recommend your company. But again, the way I operate, Jim, is I tend to go through things that are referable. So I met you some through my podcast. There's a lot of air conditioning companies, products out there, and I did business with Danby because of you, because of that referability, that comfort. So I think there's a lesson there, everybody. Get to know good people. Speaking of AI, it was a great cue you gave me about AI. So a couple of things. I use AI as collaboratively, and I embrace it. And I believe if you don't embrace it, you're in the dust. I grew up, part of my career, Jim, was in the banking industry. And my wife will tell you, because we met there as managers, Toronto Dominion Bank. I remember being a teller, man, and they had mock-ups of the first ATM. And this one mock-up wasn't working yet. And all the customers were afraid it's going to take jobs and blah, blah, blah. And look what it's done. Convenience, redeploying resources and people assets to develop other services. So I went into AI and I said, okay, I got Jim on. He's a smart guy. He's got a company called Danby. There's all this noise about tariffs and stuff going on, but I don't want to make this a political discussion. So create a question that I can give to Jim to talk about. And so this is what AI gave me. So I'm going to give you the question. You can riff on this with me. So I'll put this in the mezzo category, about your sector, how your work impacts business and society. So here we go. You're the CEO of a Canadian manufacturing company. Tell me if that's not correct. You've navigated the complexities of global trade firsthand. With the ongoing discussions about tariffs and shifting trade policies, how do these dynamics impact a company like Danby?
It is a huge impact, because more than half my sales are in the United States.
Really?
As are many companies. And I have a couple hundred employees in the United States. And I don't do politics, but half my employees voted for Trump and half of my customers in the state voted for Trump. Yeah. And this is a major shift. As a Canadian, I will say 4 years from now, we'll be fine.
Yeah.
But during the time of a shift, it's not going to be that fine. And since I have an audience, I want all Canadians to realize it's not the Americans doing it to us. And I want us to be Canadian and nice and polite to all Americans. Yeah. And the reason for that is I could also say is selfish. As a Canadian, I want the Canadian economy to thrive, or at least not go down as much as it will as a result of these tariffs. So we want Americans to come here as tourists. And if we make them feel unwelcome by booing them, then they won't come here and spend their dollars. And that is one industry, not manufacturing, but tourism can drive a lot of sales. I mean, I know a lot of Canadians are going to stay home. That'll drive our tourism. But if Americans come here, spend their dollars, which are worth $1.42 or $1.43, that helps us, because any sector helps all other sectors, if you know what I mean. So if tourism thrives, then they'll go buy more bar fridges, and they'll buy more wine coolers, and
that's right,
more freezers, right?
Yeah, everybody, really teaching moments here with Jim Estill, the CEO of Danby Appliances, on this topic of tariffs. That I agree with you. I mean, there's a bigger picture thinking here. It's kind of like Plato's Garden. We have to connect all the dots. And so if you're gonna be angry with a country, or boo, or some of these things we feel, which is emotion, we want tourism. We want to have our trading partner. We want long-term health in those relationships. I really like what you said. It's not about something, I don't want to misquote you about, it's not done to us or something like that. What did you mean by that?
Well, it isn't the Americans who are saying, let's hurt Canada.
Yeah.
It is a certain small sector of the American, like it's a tip of the leadership. The average person is just the average person. Yeah. And the average person is nice. One thing I actually like about having people travel internationally and get to know people internationally is I think it helps peace, because once you know anybody from any culture, you will like them. Like if you really know them, if you, so I just want us to be friendly and welcoming Canadians to our American guests. And
I like that.
It's
I love
easy for us to do, guys. And it means that they'll tell their friends, oh, I had a great vacation in Toronto or Quebec City or Whistler or wherever I came, and you should do that too. And then they make more money in Banff, and when they have more money in Banff, they buy more products, and it becomes self-fulfilling and good for the economy.
Thank you for sharing. Great wisdom. And Jim, you have a worldview, I guess I would say, certainly having employees in the U.S. Thanks for sharing about your company's structure. And I think that's really healthy because when you talk to somebody who's got a worldview, I learn from you. And your perspective is very different as opposed to if you just had a Canadian company and you didn't have that view. I would have to say, too, that because of your humanitarian work and just how you're wired, I think your diversity of thinking, I think that's why you think this way. I think it's very good, and it's a good lesson. I want to share with you another book, see if I can put my little studio cam up here. Again, we're on the happy book sharing day today with Jim. Jim, I'm going to ask you, so this is just to keep this back in mind, what one of your favorite books is you might recommend. But this one's called A Moderate Greatness, Why Civilizations Fail. And I'm not just showing it to say I read books, but I want to tell you that my professor recommended about 6 months ago I read this, and I can send the title to you. And she said it's a beautiful little book, and it's by a fellow named William Ophuls, 75 pages, an easy read. And I'll just want to throw this out here to see if it evokes something in you. Ophuls superbly synthesizes a huge amount of literature and presents the synthesis in an easily accessible format with beautiful, clear prose. He doesn't sugarcoat his message. There's no false optimism here. The patient, modern human civilization, is critically and perhaps terminally ill, and Ophuls explains why with enormous skill. Last thing I want to share on this, Immoderate Greatness explains how a civilization's very magnitude conspires against it to cause downfall. Civilizations are hardwired for self-destruction. They travel an arc from initial success to terminal decay and ultimate collapse due to intrinsic and inescapable biophysical limits combined with an inexorable trend, blah, blah, blah. Why I liked the book was it gave me a very different perspective of looking inward at the framework of politics and systems and whatnot. And so why I threw this book out here is you've been through COVID times. You've navigated the way as a CEO. And so sometimes we get lost and feel that, things are failing or the world is coming to an end. Give us a nugget in your leadership, how you navigated your company, its culture, its people to move through COVID and come out the other side of it. Anything at all?
Well, in COVID, I thought, the sky's going to fall and we're not going to sell anything. And I have to lay off hundreds of people. I thought it'd just be terrible.
Yeah.
And so, and then at that time, there's a shortage of ventilators. So we partnered and we made 10,000 ventilators for Canada. So
wow.
We pivoted. We actually ended up hiring an extra 100 people to do the assembly on those. We opened a brand new factory I should have been in the plexiglass business. It had more plexiglass than anything. But as it turned out, the pandemic was actually very good for the appliance business. But the problem is supply chain couldn't keep up. So I had good friends that said, "Oh, Jim, can you get me a freezer?" No, I can't get your freezer. I can't get anybody a freezer because the supply chain's all bunged up. And then, of course, we have the bounce after the COVID, so it's sales go down and back up. Really, it's all about change and change management.
That's very helpful. Did it change the delivery of your products and services in any way? Or what did you learn anything? I mean, I'll give you an example. In some industries, there were digitization. Things were digital. Things were digitized or more online, etc. I wouldn't think that those kind of shifts were prevalent in your business. But what areas changed for the better?
Office staff worked at home, so everyone became a work at home, and we still are only in the office 3 days a week in office. We're going to look at that, but and doing Teams meetings or Zoom meetings prior to the pandemic, we don't remember it. It used to be, we better call someone in IT. We're going to do it, a video call, and now it's like, okay, Tom, here's a link. Log in at 2:00, and I like this link. I didn't go and check it. I didn't go and call an IT person to do it. I clicked on it and it kind of worked. So we got good at doing remote collaboration. Yeah. That's a positive. The negative is I worry a lot for the school kids, but we lost some of that social. And as a CEO, it's particularly hard because we're on Microsoft Teams. I can Teams anyone, but I don't Teams everyone because it's kind of weird if the CEO Teams you. So I do Teams my executive team, but when you're in the office, well, you're making tea, I'm making tea. I walk past your desk. You get some of that informal collision. So I really like that informal collision. Same thing with the warehouse. I used to park and walk through the warehouse every day and say hi to everyone and shake hands even. And of course, in COVID, you stop doing that. So I think we lost something. But the other message is we are resilient. And we are going into a period of high change. We talked about AI, we talked about tariffs. High change. This isn't like, yes, we should be afraid of it, but no, the sky is not falling. 5 years from now, we will be all fine. And any problems we're dealing with today, it's all first world problems. I'm really upset. I'm not going to sell as many freezers as I want to do this month. Do I live under a bridge, or am I going to eat dinner tonight? Yeah, I'm going to eat dinner tonight.
Yeah, like you have a very positive way of thinking. If you look, I just changed the screen view. In the background behind me, there's a picture of a brain. That's actually a replica of a brain. It's a one I bought because
it's good that it's just a replica.
Well, actually, there's a real story behind it. I have a fetish. No, I fell on my head in 18 and had a concussion, as you know. But I started studying neuroscience, and it seems very basic, but you're such an example of it, that we manufacture things by how we think. So you can have positive thought or negative. You can't have the same at the same time. So COVID happens or tariffs happen, and I can start thinking negative. The world's going to end. Yeah.
Well, and I say that tariffs are a business person's nightmare and an entrepreneur's dream. So there's gold in it as well. The patriotism this has ignited in Canadians, I can say Danby's a Canadian company, and people will buy a product. Even many of our products are made in China, and some will still buy a product because we're a Canadian company. People will go to Canadian Tire instead of going to Walmart. They're buying the same product, either one place or the other. So this patriotism, I'm hoping for the economy's sake that we continue to support Canadian companies, which we will need to do if there's a tariff wall, because we no longer have an open border to sell into the United States.
Yeah. Thank you, Jim. You were telling me offline that you have 4 children, grown children, and start thinking about, when we're looking at connecting all the dots, you show up as a CEO, a leader, humanitarian work, helping 1,000 people, that you need to stay mentally strong. This is a passion for me because I'm an advocate. So what do you do? What does your day look like, your mornings, or what are some of your top hacks for staying mentally fit, not just physically?
So my top hack for staying mentally fit is to stay physically fit. I'm just saying that exercise in its own. So I do my 10,000 steps every day. That's one thing, but I also lift weights like there's no tomorrow. So I'm a big believer in that. I do meditate. I do not have a regular routine because my schedule is always variable. And whatnot, but I try to eat right, and I exercise, and because I believe health trumps wealth, and that's where it is, and tied to this whole thing is one way to help yourself mentally is to help someone else. It's
I love it.
Tough for me to feel sorry for myself that my sales are going to be down a little bit, or whatever my problem is, that when I go and help someone who just had all their possessions taken from them, had to get on a plane and go to a country where their credentials aren't recognized, they have no contacts or Rolodex, and their English isn't that good. Like, my life's pretty good.
Well, thank you, Jim. There you have it, everybody. Great hacks about staying physically and mentally as one strong. And I just want to share this with you, that I do executive coaching. I was coaching a fellow the other day, a young leader, Jim, that's up and coming. And we do this thing called the Wheel of Life. If you've ever heard of it, it's available. And the Wheel of Life has different quadrants. And the idea is, rate on a scale of 1 to 10 each one of these spokes or parts of a wheel. And when we got to contribution or service, this young fella rated at 3. And we started talking about it, and he's going through some challenges in life. And this came up that what Jim has told us is if you can find some way to serve other people, the fulfillment and the happiness and just the mental feeling changes. I've experienced that personally, Jim, and you're such a great leader to not just talk about it, but you actually walk the talk by you have backing it up, the things you're doing with the humanitarian work. And one more thing I want to throw at you, then we're going to honor you before we wrap up in a special way. I call this is a brand new segment called The Book Unwritten. And so just pretend in the magic of your mind, if there were no barriers, everything you've been thinking about and wanting to do to make the world better, even though you've done so much, if you were to write that book today, what would change how people live or the world? What would the title be, or what might it be about? What have you been thinking about?
Well, I might be Zen. And what I mean by that is, yes, the world is in state, but at the end of the day, we will all be fine. So it's accepting what we can. And I also am a big believer in conditions. Whatever the condition is the condition. I can't change who was elected. I can't change the exchange rate. Yeah. I deal with whatever that is. But I have to figure out, how am I going to deal with the exchange rate of this? How am I going to deal with tariffs? How am I going to deal with it? So those are all conditions.
Yeah.
Of course, I can try to influence. So I could send an email to a politician to say, let's make sure we get a counter tariff on. Let's make sure we do this or that. But at the end of the day, deal with whatever the conditions are and accept them. And I guess I'm old enough to know, don't overthink it and don't catastrophize, because things are not going to be as bad as we think they are. And they're just be Zen. Be Zen.
Be Zen. I've written that down on my paper, be Zen. That is such an awesome thing. I encourage you, hopefully, to one day to get that book going. I think there's got some legs there. And so on that note, it's time to honor you. We've seen various things today. I'm going to just add this back to the stage, that there's an image of Jim with the one of the awards. And so, Jim, I'm going to award you on the show today with something else. And I have tongue in cheek here because tail between my legs, because I think we were to do this for you before, just with COVID and everything, it got lost in the shuffle. And I'll edit that little excuse out of this production. So here we go. So you're being inducted into the Quiet Warrior community. We have people around the world. There is now almost 300 in a big population of people who have got this award. It's hard to get on my show. I vet hard, but it has to be people who have taken something in life, hardship or adversity or stories, and turned it into impact. You are in the 1%, Jim, and therefore you'll be receiving the Quiet Warrior show coin. It's a challenge coin. The front of it, hand-painted and crafted and minted in the U.S. The front of it is the show. The back of it is the detail of what's called the hero's journey narrative, the journey that takes like you to discover their purpose and then go out and make some impact in the world. And the history of these comes from World War I. Have you heard of challenge coins?
I have heard of challenge coins.
Yeah.
I spoke at a military event.
There you go. And they started in World War I, actually, where soldiers would carry them to commit community to each other. So basically challenge each other. And they had fun with it. One example I hear the story is if they didn't have their coins with them, one would buy drinks at the officers club, etc. So congratulations and welcome to the community. We'll be sending this out to you. You got to get your address. You can send that to me offline. And also, I'd like you to do a picture with this so I can add it to our wall of fame. So congratulations, Jim. All right. On that note, last word goes to you. I know you're at the top of the hour to go to another meeting. Anything you want to leave us with, any words of wisdom, thoughts for today?
Well, we've covered most of it. It really is, if you're a Canadian, tariffs are a business person's nightmare, but it is an entrepreneur's dream.
Yeah.
And there are many, many, many entrepreneurial opportunities that, and there will be many companies that will thrive through this, but it might mean that people end up changing from one company to another company, or one job to another job. Just like I said, hospitality, hotel, motel, restaurants, that should thrive because Canadian dollars, where exchange is where it is. Canadians stay home, support Canadian businesses, Canadian manufacturers may have a bit of a tough go, but what we're going to do is we're going to pivot into making products in Canada that are now made in the United States. So my snowplow business, Arctic Plow, for instance, as long as we put a tariff on American plows coming into Canada, we're going to, if not shut down our U.S. operation, we'll minimize our footprint there and maximize our footprint in Canada and sell lots of Canadian plows against the American plows.
Well, thank you for that, Jim. Everyone, that fits perfectly with the narrative that adversity leads to opportunities, and there is reciprocity. That's what you heard Jim talk about. How can we make this work on both sides? So, Jim, thank you for being here. It's been great to hear your wisdom, and we'll follow you and with interest and have you back again in the future anytime.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Tom.
All right, everybody, find that true passion and purpose like you hear here from Jim and live the life that you deserve and desire. And we'll see you again on the Quiet Warrior Show. We've got so much happening. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
Just stand by, Jim. Okay, we're just going to take it off live and then we'll